This episode is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. Michelob Ultra is perfect for more than just the summer heat this year, because not only is it refreshing and crisp with only 95 calories, but Ultra is also the official beer sponsor of Team USA at the Olympic Games Paris 2024. Celebrate every point, race, and moment with Team USA and Michelob Ultra for the Olympic Games Paris 2024. Stock up on Michelob Ultra and cheer on Team USA. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2024 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Hello and welcome to FinTech Insider Insights. I'm Kate Moody, Customer Strategy Director here at LMFS. On this week's show, we're going to talk about the relationship between financial services and sport. As we're making this episode, Paris is currently hosting the 2024 Olympic Games, welcoming thousands of athletes and millions of sports fans to France for the third time as a host city. With a global estimated TV audience of over 3 billion people, including myself, the eyes of the world are on the City of Light as athletes compete to win medals in sports from archery to skateboarding. The Olympics and sport in general is pretty huge business. This year's games are worth an estimated $7.3 to $12.1 billion for the city and surrounding regions' economy. Year on year, we're seeing an increase in people participating in, watching on TV and attending live sports events. So, where does financial services fit into all of this? Well, we've noticed a lot of brands in the space have been quick to attach themselves to the world of sport, whether that's by sponsoring events, teams, or the athletes themselves, often paying not insignificant sums of money for the privilege to do so. So, why does financial services love sport so much? Well, we've assembled a panel of experts, all of whom work for companies that are closely linked with sport, to find out. First up, we have a very warm FinTech Insider debut for Suresh Balaji, Chief Marketing Officer at Lloyds Banking Group. Massive welcome to the show, Suresh. Thanks for joining us. I suspect most of our listeners have heard of Lloyds, but I suppose in case they're under a rock, maybe you could introduce Lloyds and yourself, please.
Thank you, Kate. My name is Suresh. I'm the CMO leading brands, marketing, and experience at Lloyds Banking Group. The brand side of things is we have 16 brands, many of them household brands, many of them decades and centuries old, some of them quite new. Marketing, it does what it says on the tin, from acquiring new customers to speaking to our customers who are our 26 million customers, to tell them what's the best of what Lloyds Banking Group has to offer them. And experience, I'm privileged to oversee a team of experienced designers, UX, UI experts, people who map journeys and create service design innovation, customer experience a lot. So it's the breadth of everything from attracting our customers to come to us to ensuring that they have a brilliant journey through our products and propositions.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much for taking the time. I'm sure you're exceptionally busy and looking forward to hearing your opinions as we go through the show today. Next up, it's another exciting FinTech Insider debut to Stephen Watson, Global Head of Brand and Content at Airwallex. Welcome to the show, Stephen. We've had quite a few members of the Airwallex team on over time, but very happy to add you to that collection. For people who haven't come across Airwallex, would you mind giving us an intro to Airwallex and your role there, please?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for the warm welcome. I think that, in terms of Airwallex, we really exist to, help any business of any size conduct business easily across borders. And what that means is really at the essence is we're set up to help cut through the complexities of, holding money, taking in money, converting money, and then ultimately sending money over borders and also spending money in different currencies. So we do that with, the technology that we have built and allowing people to conduct their business with far greater ease across borders. In terms of myself, so I joined Airwallex back in February this year. I oversee brand and content here at Airwallex. So on the brand side, it's really about establishing what our brand strategy is and executing that brand strategy in the best way possible through a number of different channels. And then from the content perspective, it's really leading a team at the global level of mainly editorial side of things when it comes to content, but leading a team to create a lot of really engaging content that draws people into the Airwallex world. So yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, again, likewise, very excited to get your perspectives and opinions as we go through. And last, but definitely not least, completing our lineup today, it's a welcome return to the podcast for Paul Stoddart, President at Go Cardless. How are you, Paul? How are you doing? Again, I suspect most of our listeners have heard of Go Cardless, but maybe the elevator pitch just for any people that haven't, and an intro to your role, what you do there.
Thank you. I hope it's good that people have heard of us. So, so I'm the president of Go Cardless, and Go Cardless helps businesses pay, which is a newer thing, but most importantly, get paid, which is what we've been doing for 11 so years. I joined Go Cardless a couple of years ago from MasterCard, and I've got a background in banking with Barclays and RBS. And my role sort of covers, let's say, the external facing parts of the business. So our sales and relationship management teams in UK and Ireland, US, Europe and Australia, alongside our marketing, brand and comms and growth teams, and also more centrally our strategy and M&A corporate development team. So that's the scope of the remit.
I'm sure it keeps you busy. Well, yeah, again, likewise, thank you for making the time, and let's jump in. So I suppose to start off the show, we're going to take a look at the sports teams or events that you guys are sponsoring, dive into the why and the how of those partnerships and why they're working for you. So Suresh, maybe let's start with you, with Lloyds. You guys obviously announced earlier this year a long-term partnership with British Cycling. Talk us through that. What's kind of been the key drivers of that? How did it come about?
Yeah, thank you, Kate. It's super fresh, and really pleased that we've been able to get the partnership sorted before the Olympics, as you say. I think it's, firstly, I started 9 months ago now, and part of my brief was to try and figure out how do we refresh our brands to support a refresh strategy that Lloyds Banking Group have been on for the last 24 months. And the opportunity for Lloyds Banking Group is to try and work through how do we create a broader growth opportunity for the group itself in an interesting marketplace of the UK, right? There have been huge changes in market forces and non-market forces in the last 24, 48 months. It's super exciting at this point in time to be in financial services in the UK. And to be able to compete in the market, we needed to create a well-defined marketing strategy. Part of it was us refreshing our brands. We managed to create a new refreshed view for a Lloyds Bank brand. It's the iconic brand with green. If you see the color green, you know it's Lloyds. If you see the black horse, you know it's Lloyds. But the battle lines are drawn, and I'm sure that Airwallex and Go Cardless see this as well, right? The battle lines are really drawn in the experience layer. The opportunity to create experience-led brands is a big one across the industry, and the opportunity for us to think through the breadth of our experiences for our 26 million customers is a big one. So we set upon refreshing our brand strategy, refreshing our marketing strategy, working through what should be the right kind of 360-degree marketing view we should take. And through this came a view that we need to expand our equity through sport. And we went looking for the right partner, and British Cycling were looking for the right sponsors, and I think it was a marriage made in heaven, so to speak. When we met them, it was quite evident that the values of cycling as a sport, the breadth it covers, and the communities it touches, the energy of their new chief exec, John Dutton, OBE, who's just started a few months ago, actually, maybe a year now. And all of that coming together, it made sense. The more conversations we had, we could see application of the sponsorship with our communities, with our colleagues, as well as our clients. So as we undergo a mega transformation, possibly the fastest transformation program that Lloyds Banking Group has been on, for us to partner with one of the fastest growing sports was a bit of a no-brainer. And we are all very happy with the medal haul as well as we speak. So really pleased to have been able to create that partnership happen. And to your point, it's a long-term partnership, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. And I suppose we have such a broad range of listeners to this show, right? So we probably have some people listening that have worked in marketing or marketing roles of their lives, and some people maybe that don't have any exposure at all. I suppose the stereotypical view of of marketing, of sponsorship is, your name on a stadium or your name on a shirt. But actually it goes much deeper than that, right? I am a Lloyd's customer. If I go on the Lloyd's website, it's not smack bang in the middle of your website, right? It's not even smack bang in the middle of British Cycling's website. It's kind of in other places, right? So how does it actually come to life? Where does your brand actually become visible to customers, or where do they see that?
Yeah, perfect. I think we're just getting started, right? So there's a huge activation program. We just appointing an activation agency partner as we speak. And we're creating a sponsorship team as well internally. Lloyd's was the principal sponsor of London Olympics in 2012. We've not done anything in the sponsorship space in the last dozen years. So that muscle needs to be developed and grown as well. So we are trying to bring the best of activation agencies, best of our partners, and also having conversations with British Cycling, who have been, slightly distracted with Olympics, I must say. So we are trying to work with them when they're all back. I think we will have a proper conversation to say how do we activate it. But the breadth, to your question, Kate, I think the breadth of opportunities, everything from, we are trying to create a program called From Sofa to Saddle. You see what we did there, saddle and saddle, horses and cycles, to get people up and moving. We have a new brand positioning called Moving Everyone Forward, and you can see how it plays. We recently had a television advert with a girl on a BMX bike talking about how products and services for younger customers. But it's it's one of those ads which is sort of serendipitous to say we can bring horses and bikes, everything moving forward together. I think there's huge opportunity in community engagement that we want to unlock next year, as well as lots of client interactions. We kicked off the partnership with sponsorship of the Women's Tour. And I must say this, and I'm really super pleased to say this, thanks to Lloyd's participation in British Cycling, the Women's Tour prize money is now the same as the Men's Tour prize money, right? So the opportunity is not about, to your point, it's not about badging. It's not about rubber stamping. It's about doing something meaningful, both for the sport and for the communities and for our clients and colleagues. I think that's where it'll all come through. We are having conversations also to talk about recycling hubs and their value chain and how our business banking part of the business can actually support the entire value chain of cycling. So there's more to be done, but we're just getting started.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I thought that was really, really, really impressive and really great to see. Obviously, Lloyd's are sponsoring 2 wheels. Stephen, Airwallex, you've gone to sponsor 4 wheels with your partnership with McLaren, the British Formula One team. How much of what Suresh described in terms of the Lloyd's drivers resonated with what you guys are setting out to achieve at Airwallex, or do you have a slightly different mindset approach for how you go into these partnerships?
Well, I think, when thinking through a sports sponsorship, it's important to really figure out where does it naturally fit with the brand that you're working with. So in our case, when we were looking at Formula One, beyond just McLaren at the beginning, we were really thinking through, what does the sport stand for? And it's truly global sport. I mean, it goes to most countries across the world in terms of the key countries in each region. But also it stands for, innovation. If you think through where the sport has come from just a few years ago to where it is today, and with upcoming rule changes where it'll be next season as well, that this constant strive for innovation really fits into our narrative as well. I think ultimately it's about exploiting the fine margins for success as well. Knowing that when it comes to, finance, sometimes it is fine margins that you're looking to exploit in order to gain a competitive advantage or, to increase your bottom line. And I think the last thing really was something that appealed to us was this notion that from a Formula One team and the amount of effort and thought that goes into the engineering and the design of the cars is a true commitment to craft. And that's something that actually we have in our operating principles here at Airwallex, is this commitment to high craft in everything that we do, whether it's from our own engineering teams on the product side to whether it's someone who's sitting in my content team, for example. So all of these components really made for an attractive proposition when it comes to Formula One. And as it pertains to McLaren, I think that, it's one of the oldest teams on the grid, comes with a huge amount of heritage there. And I think that, yes, we've been incredibly lucky this year because, the team are performing incredibly well on on the track. But I think that having a heritage-based team also kind of helps you build trust in terms of the brand mark that you're associated with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think Formula One to me seems especially interesting because I suppose, to my mind at least, and I'm not a professional marketer by any means, but it to me feels like one of the most sponsorship associated sports. There are so many brands involved in the world of Formula One. Obviously, I can see the Airwallex logo on the sleeve of Oscar Piastri, but there's also sort of 5, 6 other brands there. So how does that work? How does that equation work when you're not sort of the lead sponsor necessarily, but you are one sponsor of many? How do you kind of manage that decision as an organization as to whether that is still worth your time and your investment?
Well, I think, first of all, the way we look at it is, a logo on a car is not necessarily going to unlock our fortunes or even set the world alight. I think that in terms of, when we get data from McLaren in terms of the exposure that we've had through TV screens, and, it's set by the global standard of sports marketing in terms of the Nielsen QI score. But we kind of take that with a bit of a pinch of salt because, whilst it shows you the reach that you may have had, it doesn't necessarily give you the idea around what you would get for comprehension. So, like, as you said yourself, you watch Formula One, you see a whole bunch of logos, and most of them you don't even pay any attention to. So really, when it comes down to this sponsorship, it's like, what, first of all, is most relevant to us as a brand? And then secondly, what can we do with it in order to drive the results that we're looking for? So yes, of course, like having the logo on the car is great, but actually we need to create campaigns around showing people that we have this great sponsorship. We need to execute the sponsorship, whether it's through kind of in-person events at a race event or, any kind of content that we create around it. That all like drives this notion of building up awareness for the brand that we are, and also like building that familiarity with people out there that we're trying to talk to. And I think that from a business perspective, because that's all from a marketing angle, from a business perspective, it's like, how can we invite people to events, whether, as I say, at the F1 tracks or at the MTC, the McLaren factory, that really drives business. So allows our AEs to create really solid relationships with decision makers and ultimately helps contribute to our bottom line. So I think that, yeah, the logo is great on the car, and it's something I can point to friends and family who ask who I work for, but really it runs much, much deeper than that. And I think that, this is our first year, so we're really just getting started. But I think that, when we thought through our strategy, those things have been really key for us.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful to understand. Thank you. And then I suppose, Paul, to bring you in again, so Go Cardless has a partnership with Swim England. So again, very, very prominent at the moment because of the Olympics. But in some ways, it's sort of slightly different, right? Like you guys have gone in as a payments provider, so you're really kind of embedding into kind of other parts of that ecosystem. So yeah, would you kind of give us a bit of an insight into how that came about and what it is you're trying to really help them to do?
Yeah, I think there's, as the others have said, there's sort of multiple layers to it. We really, as a young business, we really hadn't done any sponsorship before. And when I look back at having done most of the sports that exists over the years, I think about the different levels of resonance that each has with the business that I've been in at the time. I think for Go Cardless, one of our biggest sort of customer bases that we serve is the clubs and memberships and societies. And so it was quite interesting when I'd asked the teams to look at our sort of sectors that we serve. We serve businesses from very small up to sort of global enterprise now, but with over 100,000 business customers now, the bulk of them are at the smaller end, as you'd expect, and the bulk of those are in that sort of professional services or clubs and societies space, where the type of payment is a recurring payment, a membership or a subscription. And so when I looked at that data on our customer base, it was very clear to me that our product, our proposition, resonated very strongly with that segment of the business community. And so as I'm looking at the different opportunities and where to put our investment, one of those factors is those that resonate with our customers. And so it felt to me like those types of businesses and customers, they wrestle with the challenge of collecting payments all the time. It's still very cash dominated. And that leads to other problems of, more often than not, they're not collecting all of the subs or the fees that they're due. And equally, the cost of collecting them across different payment methods is very high. So I look for multiple things. I look for a connection in terms of what we do and our product and proposition. I'm looking for a connection in terms of our values, health and fitness, but also swimming combines the individual performance with being part of a team and a club and being part of that community. And so it's, I find in our business today as well, we've got quite a young average age in the business. And actually one of the things I've noticed is they definitely need to work better as a team and figure out how to work better as a team. There's some brilliant individual performances, but, I often would like to see more of a team performance. And so, it's values at multiple levels. So that employee engagement part of it is as important to me as is the serving customers and so on. So many levels, and whether it's, we've done some fantastic content case studies with Hillingdon Swim Club, City of Coventry Swim Club, and honestly, you could apply that to any club, any society, across any sport, across any market. And so this one wasn't so much about brand awareness for me, because in the UK, I think Go Cardless's brand awareness is pretty good. Can always get better, but it's pretty good. And as I think about some of the other markets that we operate in, then, we're going to look for something similar, but we're probably going to focus more on brand awareness in some of those markets that have been, we've only been in for 4 or 5 years. And so one of the beautiful stories that came to mind when you were talking earlier was, actually, a friend of mine sent me a picture on WhatsApp the other day, which was his daughter having passed her Learn to Swim course, and she got a little certificate that said, Emily learned to swim, passed the course, and then at the bottom was, Go Cardless as a Swim England sponsor. And he sent me a message saying, I didn't know you were sponsoring Swim England. But, that's the sort of thing that brings it home. Emily was 5. And so I'm not really trying to get her to make payments with Go Cardless, but her parents, I am. And so it also, my own experience of actually, when I started seeing Go Cardless appear on my bank statement, this was before I joined Go Cardless, I was thinking, okay, there's something interesting going on here, because, 3 years ago, there was nothing. Now there's 7 or 8 payments a month going through my, so lots of layers of engagement, and really brings a lot of pleasure when you see those little snippets of feedback from people.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. But no, I think obviously really interesting to all three of you talking about like the similarities, but also the differences between both, like what partnerships are for and kind of what's driven them. So Suresh, I suppose I'm sure it'd be interesting to our listeners to maybe understand a little bit about, like, you touched on it earlier about it being like a match made in heaven. That makes it sound very simple. I assume it's not a simple process to kind of put these partnerships in place. So would you mind giving us a sort of like maybe a sneak behind the curtain as to how do these partnerships actually happen? How do they go from idea to reality?
Yeah, great question, Kate. We went looking for partnerships, right? That's the first thing. Usually partnerships, I get tons of proposals coming into my email. I'm sure Stephen Paul do too, right? There is somehow people get hold of your idea and they're sending you a sponsorship for something or the other. I've had the weirdest and the most wonderful things come through my inbox, and we take time to go through it and respond to them and say, thank you, not for us. Thank you very much indeed, and good luck with your gig. The most important thing is to have clarity around brand strategy. If you know what your brand needs to stand for, what the commercial outcomes are, and where do we need to get to from what's from to, is super important. I think for our brand, it's quite evident that the direction of travel for us are very much like Paul's point about Go Cardless. It's not an awareness play for Lloyds either. You alluded to it earlier. I think the opportunity for our brand is to continue to tell the story of a modern brand ready for the digital world, ready for next generation, and the ability for us to create experiences that will help customers thrive. The at the heart of it, if that is our strategy, we had to think through what sort of partnerships make sense, and we cast the net a bit wide. There were quite a few opportunities that came up, small and large ones. But the most important thing for us was to think through inclusivity, technology, community, reach, as well as the opportunity for us to tell our narrative in a meaningful way across multiples of sport. One of the things that was great about British cycling was it's not one sport, right? So there's a multitude of sport that comes through. There's BMX, cyclocross, track, and the works. So we looked at the breadth of it. We could map various elements of the sport to various audiences that we were going to speak with. And how does that then, and there's a big piece as well around media value. I think it's important to think through that the currency continues to be TV hours, media value. Where does the logo go? Definitely. That's one big piece to it. But the other pieces are we able to add brand equity elements from cycling to augment our brand's equity elements? The second big one, which is probably most important, is will we meaningfully be able to add value to the sport? I think that's something that sponsors overlook. It's always extractive. Here is a commercial deal. Here is what we want to do, and a massive sourcing procurement engine that kicks in and has conversations. Our sourcing teams, one of the things that they look for is also there's a big piece around values match. They look for values match. They look for what British cycling's values are and what ours are, and will we be able to symbiotically create a better, and an improved version of cycling in Britain. And I think that was on our mind. If we were not going to be able to value add, I don't think we would have done it. I think we can see how we can value add through the entire financial services value chain, as well as bringing data, technology, capability. We are planning to do a workshop with them on, how best can we bring our AI and ML machine learning skills to British cycling to help them with what they can do. And the whole idea of marginal gains. I think Stephen mentioned this earlier as well, right? And the way he was thinking about the sponsorship. And I think there is something to it in terms of how do we bring modern craft, something that we have learned, to British cycling as an association. And British cycling are a not-for-profit business, right? So it's a setup as a charity, and they are not going to be able to bring all of this. Some of the stuff that brands and businesses invest in is not where they go to start with, and it's something that I think the breadth of British businesses should be doing to help British sport broadly, and that was one of the big considerations.
No, that makes a ton of sense. Well, I think that's a really great place for us to take a quick pause, a very quick break. And when we come back, we'll dig deeper into what we think the future relationship of sport and financial services might look like. It's all coming up after this super quick break, so don't go anywhere.
Whether you're starting or scaling your company's security program, demonstrating top-notch security practices and establishing trust is more important than ever. Vanta automates compliance for ISO 27001, SOC 2, GDPR, and more, saving you time and money while helping you build customer trust. Plus, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing trust center, all powered by Vanta AI. Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Our audience gets a special offer of $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/insider. That's VANTA.com/insider for $1,000 off.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Welcome back to FinTech Insider Insights, where we're talking about the relationship between financial services and sports. In the first half of the show, we discussed our panel's brand partnerships with various sports and what they mean for their brand and their customers. Now we're going to dive a bit deeper into how those sports can leverage financial services and what the future might look like. Okay, so obviously, as we talked about in the first half, you guys are all doing slightly different things, working in different organisations. Paul, you sort of touched on some of the practical ways in which Go Cardless is helping Swim England. Do you think we'll see more sports teams actively looking to fintechs to find ways to improve their operations in the future?
Yeah, I think it's a natural. I think the world has become a lot more about partnerships and collaboration and working together. And it's lots of sort of fundamental drivers along with the pace of change. The touch points are much more complex these days. And so when I think about organizations like Swim England, the way in which, like most sport, is funded, it requires a lot from lotteries and other grants, and the charitable status often helps with some. I think those partnerships are really important for both driving incremental investment, but also improving the way in which those organizations are run themselves. The basic examples of some of these local swim clubs where they are still asking swimmers to, and whether that's swimming, netball, football, rugby, whatever it is, they're still asking kids to come with 2, 3, 4 pounds in their pocket. They forget, and so when we look at the commercial benefits to these grassroots clubs and societies, they are able to collect all the fees that they're due, because that's one of the problems. And then the second one is just to reduce the overall cost of payments. And actually to do even those most simple of things, a partnership with a fintech or somebody who is a specialist in that area is the best way for them to help. And I think also playing on the emotional side of that, which is we can't always afford to pay. I mean, most clubs and societies struggle to raise money to keep going. Everyone's a volunteer, but actually that can help, right? It can help a partner feel like they're able to give something back. And when we talk to our employees about what's important and where do they want to spend their time, they want to spend their time doing things like this and volunteering and helping in any way they can. And as parents of children who, one of whom still swims, the other one started swimming as well, but has since stopped, I know how much ask is put on the parents and the wider community. And so it's very inclusive as a whole, and that word has a really strong resonance with exactly what's going on here. So, technology often is slowest to get down to these parts of our community and these organizations who don't have the funds available to them to make these investments. And so you have to think about innovation and creativity in a slightly different way, which is not necessarily technology-led or technology-driven. But the more that it can incorporate that, the more these clubs and societies and community organizations can innovate around how they improve themselves and how they improve what they offer to the kids that are part of the community that they're serving. Then it all helps, and it is all about helping them improve what they offer to those that benefit from that. And so there's connections at very many levels, and I think those partnerships are going to continue to become more and more extensive as a way for everybody to move the ball forward, as they say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Stephen, I'm interested to get your perspective as well, because obviously both Paul and Suresh, their organisations are sponsoring English-based or British-based organisations. You're sponsoring a global company. You are a global platform yourself. How does that shift your perspective? Are you kind of looking at this from a more global angle? Are you trying to work out kind of are there markets in particular where Airwallex can deploy its technology, its platform through Formula One to have impact in different ways? Like, what's your take?
Well, I think, as a business, we're always looking at further expansion into different markets, and indeed, that is an ongoing thing that will continue. I think that our choice of going down the Formula One route was, in essence, because it's a global organization. So, if we're going to position ourselves as a company that can facilitate global business, then it made sense for us to get involved with a sport that had that global footprint. Now, it could be argued that other sports also have a global footprint, and of course they do. Like Liverpool Football Club certainly has a global footprint. But I think the difference with Formula One is that, the circus, if you will, moves from country to country. And so that obviously gave us exposure to each one of those markets in which it went into, but also from for want of a better term, from an authentic perspective, then, we knew that the McLaren team could utilize our technology in order to fulfill their payment needs in the different markets that they went into. So we not only had that kind of global reach, but also that authentic story that we can talk about in terms of how McLaren is utilizing our technology, which was very important to us. And I think that is also a fundamental principle of our strategy when it comes to sport sponsorship. Is not only do we want to find partners that would allow us to get the reach that we want to have, but also have that authenticity in terms of how they could use our product. Now, it may be that it's not always about a global footprint or money movement, but it could be about how they're integrating our technology in terms of an e-commerce platform, for example. So, yeah, I think that certainly it's. I mean, McLaren is a British company, but it sits within the global Formula One footprint, and that was very important to us.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Suresh, one of the things that people get very excited about potentially is the future role of Web3, crypto, however you want to describe it in this space. I spotted from a slightly cheeky LinkedIn stalk before this show that you're a founder of the Web3 Marketing Association. So I'm going to hazard a guess that this is something that you are personally interested in. How do you think Web3 will shape the kind of partnership between FS and sport more broadly? Is it just going to be about like the fan experience, tokens, and those kinds of things, or is it going to go deeper, do you think?
Look, hey, great question. I didn't expect that, but maybe there are three areas, right? The first one is, what is Web3? Web3 is just the next generation of the internet. The current generation of the internet is terrible. We all hate it. We hate doom scrolling. I don't want to give a phone or a web Wi-Fi connection enabled device to my 9-year-old daughter, right? So we just absolutely detest it. We've got to get to a better version of the internet. That's the whole idea. And within that comes blockchain technologies, AR and VR, XR. How do we use AI in a safe way? That's what Web3 is all about. If you think about it, then the first piece, as you alluded to it, is there an opportunity to think about this in a sort of spatial, augmented virtual world? Absolutely. I think the opportunity to think about gaming is a way bigger industry than entertainment is right now. Is there an opportunity for us to connect real sport to esports and gaming? We definitely don't want everyone wearing VR headsets and walking around and bumping into each other on the streets. But if we can gamify the sport, I'm a huge user of Strava, for example, and there are tons of other apps where you can totally bring a gamified element to any sport, and I think that makes it easy. The second big one is certainly in the creator economy, there is a big opportunity to create digital collectibles. It is just early days of digital collectibles. I think it's 10 years away in my view. But when it happens, there's a piece bringing on board some of the technologies to enable every sport possible. And third, essentially in this AI, right? I mean, no podcast can be complete without having a conversation about AI. I think these technologies are really going to help us try and understand how, if you think about cycling is all about marginal gains by looking at hundreds and thousands of pieces of data. If you can help create where to look at, what variables to look at, and how should an athlete train. The big conversation was always about, is it going to be about humans versus machines? And we know the answer to this is Machines are going to help humans be even better humans. If we think about it that way, can we use artificial intelligence to help tell us where will those marginal gains come from? Can we apply that into any sport and apply that in any business? So look, that world, we can have a separate podcast about it, right? That's a big world and a big question, but thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate it. Yeah, we definitely have not got time to do it full justice today. The other trend that we are seeing, move away from Web3, the other trend we're seeing is, as we've talked about, maybe fintechs going out to sport, but we're also seeing kind of it come the other way where, sport athletes in particular are starting to kind of come into the fintech space to kind of actively invest in fintech. Stephen, do Airwallex have any prominent sports investors that I've missed, or are you guys looking to recruit kind of the next sports megastars as an investor in your next round? What's your take on the whole athletes investing in fintech trend?
Look, I think that, not to my knowledge, do we have any big sports stars? Not certainly directly involved in our investment rounds, but I'm sure there potentially is through some of our other investors. But I think with anything, like at the end of the day, these people bring a huge amount of profile to any investment that they make. So I think probably one of the notable ones is like Ashton Kutcher. I mean, he is invested in many different companies, and I suppose in the fintech space, Robinhood is one of his key ones. So I think that, there is a cachet that they can bring, or just like awareness around the product in itself, and having a high profile backer of any sort brings with it a certain amount of trust in what that product is. So I think that it can only be a good thing within reason, but ultimately, whether they're athletes or celebrities get into the financial services game or any of the other kind of tech investment areas, I think that there's a lot of positivity that can come out of it.
Yeah, no, we had the CEO of an American fintech called Super on the show a little while ago, and he had, they've got Steph Curry, the US basketball player, as one of their investors, and he had like this sort of signed jersey framed, like hanging on the wall behind him. So it was definitely something he was using, like as a conversation starter. But also, he said very pragmatically, it had also been great for sort of making introductions, raising profile, etc. Sadly, we are getting towards the end of the show. I would very happily spend the rest of my day just picking your brains about sports, but I suspect you'll have very busy jobs to get back to. So my last question, I suppose, is, if we do have brand managers, people interested in getting into brand marketing, listening to this, thinking about either getting involved or getting their company involved in a partnership with a sports team or brand, what would be your one piece of advice to them, Paul?
I think it's a connection. What I see a lot of and have seen a lot of over the years is a slightly sort of random, just because I think we ought to sort of approach to some of this, a bit like the kind of investor conversation for me. I'm not sure that it's a good thing, but I can see some value that some people get from it. It's that connection. What's the connection? Why are you doing it? What's the motivation? Be really clear on that. And I think it will turn out well, if well executed, obviously. But I think you have to answer those questions first. Why am I doing this? What's the value I hope to get from it? Is this the only way? Is this the only thing I can do that will advance that objective? But really think about the connection between your brand and which organization or sport or so on that you're sponsoring, and work on that with employees throughout the organization, not just on the obvious external things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Stephen, what about you? What's your top tip?
Well, I think that, Paul's right. I think getting back to first principles in terms of what you need to get out of it and what you want to get out of it. So I won't go over that again, but I think another thing is just be incredibly clear on how, and if you have the resources to execute appropriately. Because, there is a danger sometimes of putting all your investment into the sponsorship itself and then hoping that gives you the return. So you need to ensure that you get into the sponsorship, but that you have the resources to execute, whether that's through campaigns or events or just having a really healthy community position amongst the fans or, the people who are interested in that area. So that would be my second top tip, really.
Yeah, no, makes complete sense. And I guess, Suresh, final word to you. Maybe imagine our brand manager is a frustrated employee at a large international bank struggling to get buy-in to go do something. I guess that's probably where your experience might be most relevant, maybe.
Look, I would say think about it as a partnership, right? If you think about it as a sponsorship, then you're thinking about we'll cut a check and we'll get some value. The big opportunity is, I think, Paul's point, right? I mean, the work that they're doing for the 5-year-old. And what are you actually bringing to the table, which can create value beyond your logo, beyond the checkbook, beyond the conversation in procurement, versus saying, what do we do for the sport that we sponsor? Look, I'm from India. 250 years ago, if a contingent who were playing cricket over there did not invite Indians to play cricket, there wouldn't be 1.3 billion followers of the sport. Right? Someone decided, let's make it inclusive. Let's bring everyone into the tent. I think that's the opportunity, right? So the massive opportunity is for brands to think through what can we do to genuinely help grow the sport and bring a partnership view and not an extractive view.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome advice.
I think there's varying degrees of that, though. I think that's a really good point, but there's varying degrees of it, because I think if you're looking at a sport grassroots, that makes total sense. If you take a sport like Formula One, a hugely wealthy sport, and so therefore you think, well, your strategy has to be slightly different there. You have to think through, like, quite frankly, the money you put in is probably a drop in the ocean compared to some other partners or as a collective. So it's really like, you do think a little bit more commercial around it. But if it's a grassroots initiative, or if it's a sport that is coming from a less wealthy base, then of course I think it makes all the sense in the world to think, how can you grow that sport and how do you be a part of it?
For sure. Well, yeah, I'm gutted. That wraps up today's discussion. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me and share your perspectives to our listeners. Where can people find out more about you? Well, not to send you aggressive messages about sponsoring their companies, but hopefully to kind of learn more about your companies and what you're doing, Suresh.
On our Instagram, I think, probably the best place to go to. Thank you.
Awesome. Stephen?
Yeah, you can take a look at airwallex.com as well as our Instagram handle. And then, you can look me up on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. And Paul, what about you?
GoCardless.com or Swim England.
Brilliant. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Kate Moody on LinkedIn. You can email me, kate@lnfest.com. Please don't send me any sponsorship opportunities. I have no money. And but if you've got some thoughts, on fintech and sport, I'd love to hear them. So thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard, follow our podcast and don't forget to leave us a review. It helps us to make the show better, helps others to find this show as well. As always, if you want to join the conversation, find us on social media. Just search for 11FS or Fintech Insider or email podcast@11fs.com. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Whether you're starting or scaling your company's security program, demonstrating top-notch security practices and establishing trust is more important than ever. Vanta automates compliance for ISO 27001, SOC 2, GDPR, and more, saving you time and money while helping you build customer trust. Plus, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing trust center, all powered by Vanta AI. Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Our audience gets a special offer of $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/insider. That's VANTA.com/insider for $1,000 off.